The number vanished while I was still staring at it. One refresh. Then another. The bonus line on my payroll app blurred, flickered, and came back gray. Pending. Review extended. Behind me, my director laughed. Not with me. At something on his screen, loud enough for the entire floor to hear. My chest went hot. My fingers tightened around my phone so hard the edge bit into my palm. I stood there frozen, half expecting it to be a glitch, half knowing it wasn't. This was Brandon Hillcrest. The man who'd promised me everything 6 months ago. The man who'd shaken my hand like we were partners. The man who was about to learn what happens when you break a promise to someone who reads contracts for fun. I refreshed the app one more time. The gray text stared back at me, mocking. My bonus, the one I'd earned by carrying an entire product launch on my back, was gone. Not delayed. Disappeared. Like it had never existed at all. I meant to tell you earlier, Brandon said, stepping closer, lowering his voice just enough to sound kind. Leadership decided to delay bonuses this cycle. Indefinitely. Indefinitely. The word landed like a slap. People pretended not to listen. Chair rolled. Someone coughed. Keyboards clicked with sudden urgency. I nodded because that's what women do when they're trying not to scream in the middle of an open office. It's temporary, he added, already turning away. Just a cash flow thing. You understand. I understood perfectly. I understood that he'd just lied to my face. I understood that he thought I'd swallow it quietly. I understood that he had no idea what he'd just triggered. My name is Julia West. I'm 32 years old. I've worked in tech operations for 8 years. And this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was theft. Calculated, deliberate theft. And I was about to make him regret every second of it. 6 months earlier, Brandon had leaned against my desk, smiling like we were on the same side. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The office smelled like burned coffee and deadline stress. Deliver this quarter, he said, tapping my desk with his knuckle. And your bonus is locked. 25,000. No questions. Clear amount. Clear date. Clear terms. I'd pulled out my notebook, the purple one I kept for important things, and written it down. March 15th. $25,000. Contingent on successful Q4 delivery. He'd watched me write it, still smiling. Then he'd extended his hand. Shaken it. His palm was warm and dry. Confident. I take care of people who take care of me, he'd said. Those exact words. I'd believed him. That was my first mistake. But believing someone isn't a crime. Breaking your word to them is. That quarter cost me everything. It cost me weekends with my sister, who stopped inviting me to things. It cost me sleep, real sleep, the kind where you don't dream about spreadsheets. It cost me a flight home for my nephew's birthday. I'd promised him I'd come. I never rebooked. I fixed mistakes that weren't mine. Database crashes at 2 a.m. client complaints that should have gone to customer service. Budget overruns from another team's poor planning. I smoothed conflicts I didn't start. When the sales team blamed operations for their missed targets, I took the meeting. I showed them the data. I made them look good. Carried a team that knew I would. They piled work on my desk because Julia always delivers. Julia never complains. Julia makes it work. And I did. Every single time. 'Cause I had a promise. A locked bonus. A reason to push through. When the project succeeded, Brandon praised someone else in the team meeting. Trevor Marks. Brandon's favorite. The golden boy who joined 3 months into the quarter and taken credit for systems I'd built in the middle of the night. Outstanding leadership, Brandon said. His eyes shining with pride. Trevor smiled modestly. Everyone clapped. I sat in the back, hands folded in my lap, watching. After the meeting, Brandon sent me a private message on Slack. Great support as always. Support. Like I'd been holding a flashlight while someone else did surgery. Like my name wasn't on every delivery document. Like I hadn't given up pieces of my life to make his numbers look good. I stared at that message for 10 minutes. Then I closed my laptop and went to the bathroom. I didn't cry. I just stood there, breathing, counting tiles on the floor, waiting for my hands to stop shaking. I asked about the bonus 2 weeks later. Only, casually, like it was no big deal. Brandon was at the coffee station, doctoring his espresso with 3 sugars and oat milk. Hey, I said, keeping my voice light. Quick question about compensation. The Q4 bonus, when does that process? He didn't even look up. Oh, we're just reviewing things, he said, stirring slowly. Nothing to worry about. He took a sip, made a satisfied sound and walked away. Nothing to worry about. I stood there holding my empty mug, watching him disappear around the corner. That phrase echoed in my head all day. Nothing to worry about. The kind of thing people say when they're hoping you'll stop asking. I believed him. That was my second mistake. But asking about money you've earned isn't unreasonable. Lying about it is. 2 weeks after that I asked again. This time I caught him in the hallway, right outside the strategy meeting. Brandon, about the bonus. Is there a timeline? He sighed like I'd asked him to explain quantum physics. Timing isn't ideal right now, he said, checking his watch. Let me circle back with you. Then he turned and walked into the meeting. Through the door I heard him congratulate someone. Loud, enthusiastic praise. For hitting a metric I'd designed. A target I'd built the tracking system for. I stood in that hallway for 3 full minutes. People walked past me. Someone asked if I was okay. Said yes. But I wasn't okay. Something had shifted. The lie wasn't vague anymore. It had shape. It had intent. He wasn't delaying my bonus because of cash flow. He was delaying it because he could. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and a mug of tea that went cold while I worked. My apartment was quiet. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the tap of my fingers on keys. I opened my employment agreement for the first time in 3 years. The PDF loaded slowly, page by page. I scrolled past the standard stuff. Salary, benefits, vacation policy. Then I reached page 11, section 4. Compensation, dispute resolution, and exit terms. My pulse slowed as I read. There it was. The clause I'd insisted on adding after my last job burned me. The clause my previous company had tried to talk me out of. The clause that made the HR representative purse her lips and say, "This is unusual." I read it twice. Then 3 times. Each word sharp and clear. Beautiful in its precision. This was my exit. The clause was simple. If any promised compensation remained unpaid for more than 60 days past the agreed date, and if the employer failed to provide written justification within 10 business days of employee inquiry, the employee could invoke immediate resignation with full payout of all outstanding compensation, plus 3-month severance, plus penalties calculated at 2% per week of delay. I remembered negotiating it. The lawyer I'd hired had raised an eyebrow when I'd outlined what I wanted. Most people don't ask for this level of protection, she'd said, pen hovering over her notepad. I'm not most people, I'd replied. She'd smiled. No, you're not. The company had pushed back. They'd sent 3 rounds of edits. But I'd held firm. Take the clause or lose me. They'd taken it. Now was time to use it. My hands were steady as I closed the document. I stopped asking about the bonus. Complete silence. No more hallway conversations. No more casual mentions. Brandon noticed. I could see it in the way he relaxed around me. His shoulders dropped. His smile came easier. He started making jokes near my desk again, laughing at his own humor. He thought he'd won. Thought he'd trained me to accept less. Thought I'd given up. Instead, I was documenting everything. I created a folder on my personal cloud. A simple spreadsheet with 3 columns. Date, event, evidence. I logged every email, every Slack message, every conversation. March 15th. Bonus payment date per original agreement. Status, unpaid. March 16th. Verbal inquiry to Brandon Hillcrest. Response. We're reviewing things. March 30th. Second verbal inquiry. Response. Timing isn't ideal. April 7th. Payroll status changed to deferred. No timeline. Each entry precise. Each one building my case. Brandon announced new initiatives in the April team meeting. Big plans. Ambitious targets. This is about loyalty, he said, pacing at the front of the room like a motivational speaker. This is about commitment to excellence. To each other. To the mission. He talked for 40 minutes. Never once mentioned compensation. Never acknowledged that half the room was working on delayed bonuses. Never admitted that loyalty runs both ways. I watched him perform. Watched people nod along. Watched Trevor take notes like Brandon was delivering gospel. When the meeting ended, I stayed in my seat. Let everyone file out. Let the room empty. Then I opened my laptop and added another entry to my spreadsheet. April 9th. All hands meeting. Discussion of loyalty and commitment. No mention of outstanding compensation. Quote, loyalty to each other. The evidence folder was growing thicker. Soon it would be enough. In May, Brandon asked me to train a new hire. Kyle Patterson. Fresh out of college. Eager. Bright. Another favorite in the making. I need you to show him the systems, Brandon said. Get him up to speed on your workflows. He's going to be taking on more responsibility. Taking on more responsibility. Translation, replacing you. Agreed. Mile. Said I'd be happy to help. Then I spent 2 weeks training Kyle on everything except the crucial details. I showed him the interfaces, the basic processes, the surface-level stuff. But the architecture, the deep knowledge, the institutional memory that made everything actually work. I kept that to myself. Wrote it down in my personal notes. Encrypted. Backed up. Brandon watched us work together. Gave me a thumbs up one afternoon. Thought I was being a team player. I was. Just not for his team. Not anymore. The payroll status changed again in late May. I checked the app on a Tuesday morning. The gray text had updated. Deferred, no timeline. No timeline. Not next quarter. Not under review. No timeline at all. That single phrase triggered the clause. 60 days had passed since March 15th. Multiple inquiries had been made. No written justification had been provided. The contract was clear. The terms were met. I sat at my desk, phone in hand, and felt something settle inside me. Not anger. Not even satisfaction. Just clarity. Cold, pure clarity. I opened my email and started a new message to the employment attorney I'd used 3 years ago. Subject line. Contract enforcement. I attached my agreement and my evidence folder. Then I sent it. Her response came within an hour. Call me. You don't need permission, she said after I'd explained everything. Her voice was calm, matter-of-fact. The voice of someone who'd seen this play out 100 times. The contract is clear. You've met every condition. You just need to notify them formally. I was sitting in my car in the parking garage. Phone pressed to my ear. Engine off. What happens when I do? Asked. She paused, and I could hear papers rustling on her end. They'll panic. They'll try to negotiate. They'll offer you the bonus immediately. But once you invoke the clause, they owe you much more than that. The severance. The penalties. They'll want to settle quickly before word gets out. And if they fight it, they won't, she said confidently. Not with this documentation. They'd lose in arbitration within a week. No company wants that publicity. Thanked her. Ended the call. Sat in the silence of my car for 10 minutes. Then I drove home and started writing the email. I waited 3 days before sending it. Those 3 days were the calmest I'd felt in months. I worked perfectly. Smiled at the right moments. Laughed at Brandon's terrible jokes. Helped Kyle with a problem he couldn't solve. Then documented the solution in my personal files. Brandon grew comfortable. Careless. He stopped checking on me. Stopped asking about my workload. Started treating me like furniture. Reliable. Invisible. Replaceable. On the third night, I sat at my kitchen table again. The email was drafted. Short. Professional. Neutral in tone. I invoked the clause. Cited section 4, page 11. Attached the required documentation. Confirmed that all conditions had been met. Requested immediate processing of all owed compensation plus contractual penalties. No emotion. No accusation. Just facts. At 8:47 p.m. I clicked send. Then I closed my laptop, poured a glass of wine and waited. Brandon replied within 12 minutes. The subject line was all caps. Urgent. The message was 3 words. Let's talk ASAP. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring. Voicemail. Char. Hi Julia, this is Patricia from Human Resources. We need to discuss a matter urgently. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. 5 minutes later another call. Same number. Different voice. This time it was Patricia's supervisor. Julia, this is Aaron Weston, HR Director. We've received your message and we'd like to schedule an immediate meeting to resolve this matter. Please contact me directly. I didn't answer. Didn't return the calls. The contract was clear. They had 10 business days to respond in writing. Phone calls didn't count. Text messages didn't count. Only formal written response. I'd learned that lesson from my lawyer. Never negotiate in real time. Make them put it in writing. Make them own their words. By morning everything had shifted. I arrived at the office at my usual time. 15. Coffee from the shop downstairs. The elevator ride was normal. Quiet jazz playing overhead. But when I stepped onto my floor I felt it immediately. The air had changed. People looked at me differently. Not hostile. Worry. Like I'd become something unpredictable. Patricia was waiting at my desk. Julia, she said, forcing a smile. Do you have a moment to chat? I'm pretty busy this morning, I replied, setting down my coffee. Perhaps we could schedule something for later in the week? Her smile faltered. This really can't wait. It's about the message you sent last night. There's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I said calmly. Everything is clearly outlined in my employment agreement. I'm simply exercising my contractual rights. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Brandon would like to speak with you. I'm sure he would. I turned to my computer, logged in, and started checking emails. Patricia stood there for another 30 seconds. Then she walked away. The written response arrived at 2:37 p.m. A formal letter from HR, copied to legal, addressed to me with appropriate corporate gravity. They acknowledged receipt of my notice. They confirmed the bonus had been delayed. They offered immediate payment of the original $25,000, plus an additional $5,000 as a goodwill gesture. They hoped we could resolve this matter amicably. No mention of the severance. No mention of the penalties. No acknowledgement of the contract terms I'd invoked. It was an insult wrapped in professional language. I forwarded it to my attorney without comment. She called me 10 minutes later, laughing. They think you'll take the bribe and go away. Will I? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Not unless you want to leave money on the table. Based on the penalty calculation, they owe you close to $90,000. Plus severance. You've earned it. Take it. That night I drafted my response. Declined their offer. Reiterated the contract terms. Gave them 3 days to comply. Sent it at 9 p.m. Brandon was placed on administrative leave 48 hours later. I didn't learn about it from an announcement. I learned it from watching him pack his desk. He didn't look at me as he walked out, carrying a cardboard box. Security escort behind him. His face was red. His movements jerky. Angry. The entire floor watched in silence. Trevor looked shocked, standing frozen by the printer. Kyle kept his head down, suddenly very focused on his screen. After Brandon left, Aaron from HR came to my desk. We're conducting an investigation, he said quietly, into the bonus delay situation. We take these matters seriously. He nodded, said nothing. We'd like your cooperation. Any additional documentation you might have. Communications, timelines, anything relevant. I've already provided everything necessary, I replied. Is there something specific you're looking for? He hesitated, then shook his head. No. Thank you for your patience while we sort this out. The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. They pulled records, interviewed team members, reviewed email chains, checked payment approvals. What they found was a pattern. Not just with me. Brandon had been playing this game with multiple people. Delaying bonuses. Making promises he didn't keep. Redirecting credit. Building his favorites while crushing everyone else. 3 other employees came forward once they heard about the investigation. 2 had similar stories. Promised bonuses that disappeared. Verbal agreements that were never honored. 1 had already quit, taking nothing, believing she had no recourse. The company's legal team realized they had a bigger problem than just me. If this went public, if people started talking, the reputation damage would be massive. Not to mention the potential class action. So they moved to contain it. Fast, quiet, surgical. Within a week, Brandon was gone. Not on leave. Gone completely. The official story was, pursuing other opportunities. Everyone knew better. The settlement offer arrived on a Friday. A thick envelope, delivered by courier to my apartment. I signed for it, carried it inside, and spread the contents across my kitchen counter. They were offering everything. The original bonus. The severance. The penalties calculated precisely to the day. Plus an additional confidentiality payment. Total. $112,000. In exchange, I'd sign a non-disclosure agreement. Standard corporate cleanup. They wanted silence. Wanted this buried. I read every page carefully. Called my attorney. It's fair, she said. Actually, it's generous. The confidentiality payment is higher than I'd expected. They really want this to go away. What do you think? Yes. Pause. Take it. You've won. You've made your point. And you've protected yourself for the future. This is what leverage looks like. I signed the papers that night. Scanned them. Emailed them back. The money hit my account the following Tuesday. All of it. Exactly as specified. I sat at my desk at work, the work I'd be leaving in exactly 2 weeks per the agreement, and refreshed my banking app. The number was real. Solid. Green. Not pending. Not deferred. Not gray. Green and confirmed. Felt lighter. Not happy exactly. Justice doesn't always feel like happiness. But lighter. Like I'd been carrying weight I could finally put down. That afternoon I submitted my formal resignation. Professional. Gracious. Thanking them for the opportunity. No mention of the fight. No mention of Brandon. No mention of anything except gratitude and growth. HR accepted it immediately. They didn't try to convince me to stay. Didn't offer counter-proposals. They just processed the paperwork and scheduled my exit interview. 2 weeks. Then I'd be free. The thought made me smile for the first time in months. My last day was quiet. No farewell party. No speeches. No gathering in the break room with cake and awkward goodbyes. Just a normal Thursday that happened to be my final one. I cleaned out my desk methodically. Personal photos. The coffee mug my sister gave me. The desk plant that had survived 2 years of fluorescent lights and neglect. I wiped down my keyboard. Logged out of all systems. Returned my badge to security. Trevor approached as I was leaving. Hey, he said, uncomfortable. I just wanted to say, good luck with everything. Thanks, I replied. You too. For what it's worth, I didn't know, he added. About the bonus situation. About any of it. I looked at him. Young. Eager. Still believing the system was fair. Now you do, I said. Then I walked out. The evening air was cool. Traffic hummed in the distance. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, just breathing. Then I went home. 3 months later, I started my own consulting practice. Lean. I built it slowly, carefully, taking only clients I respected. People who valued expertise. Who paid fairly. Who understood that good work costs money. My first client came from a former colleague who'd heard about my departure. She needed help building an operations system. I designed it in 2 weeks. She paid my full rate without negotiation. The second client was a referral. Then a third. Word spread quietly. She's good. Is fair. She doesn't waste time. My calendar filled. My rates increased. I worked from my apartment, from coffee shops, from wherever I wanted. No office politics. No broken promises. No directors who thought loyalty was something they could demand without earning. I thought about Brandon sometimes. Wondered where he ended up. If he'd learned anything. But mostly I didn't think about him at all. I was too busy building something better. 6 months after leaving, I got a message on LinkedIn. From Kyle. The new hire I'd trained. The one who'd watched everything happen. "Hi Julia," it read. "I hope this isn't weird. But I wanted to thank you. After you left, I realized what you'd been dealing with. I found my own contract clause. Not as strong as yours, but it's there. I'm documenting everything now. Just in case. You taught me more than systems. You taught me to protect myself. Thank you." I read it twice. Then I replied, "You're welcome. That's the most important skill in any job. Knowing your worth. And making sure you get it." Closed the app. Looked around my apartment. My laptop. My business. My terms. Knowing your worth doesn't require permission. It doesn't require approval. It just requires timing, preparation, and the courage to walk away when someone tries to take what's yours. Brandon never contacted me again. I never expected him to. Some people never learn. But I had. And that was worth more than any bonus.